Right, fantastic, guys. Let's get going. A couple more people can slowly feed in. Really good turnout. So, guys, fantastic. This is the first one of our men's health series. We're going to cover testosterone today. I'm going to be diving into kind of maybe dispelling a few myths and kind of talking through quite a big area. Testosterone, and it can be a little bit misunderstood. So I'm going to talk about mechanisms, a bit about training, a bit about cortisol, get some take homes, and there's always a chance for us to go through some Q&As at the end. So testosterone here it's got a like a flow here where we're gonna it peaks, which is when you think it peaks at 18, it can be a little bit of a depressing thought, but this is just an awareness thing that we can put interventions in to help slow that decline. Okay, but again, this is why I'm running these men's health series, because this is all about being proactive. So we want to be thinking about what can we do now instead of waiting until we're 40, 50, and then thinking, I need to do something about this. If we're proactive with it, we're going to be ahead of the curve. So just a little bit on testosterone, actual mechanisms and how it's produced. So it's a steroid hormone. So it's produced from cholesterol. All hormones in the body are produced from cholesterol. And then it goes into this pathway, goes into pregnenolone, into DHEA. So now you don't need to worry about this too much. I'm going to talk about this this graph a little bit more in detail. But one of the things that we want to be thinking and to know is that there's two ways that, mainly that testosterone is lowered. Okay, there's a thing where cortisol, it's called cortisol steal or pregnenolone steal, where there's too much cortisol in the body, and as you can see here, the pathway, it comes from the same thing. So if there's too much cortisol, it steals this pathway. So if that isn't an issue, then it can come down in here. And then what happens often is there's too much turned into estrogen. Okay, so too much testosterone, it isn't used in the body and it's turned into estrogen. So these are kind of the two main areas that cause low testosterone, but don't worry, I'm going to go into all about how to deal with this. With anything with hormones in the body, it really is about balance, guys. So, more is not always better. And that's a really key thing for when someone says about boosting things or lowering things. And, you really need to have balance with hormones. Too much of anything is going to be an issue, not enough of something. Okay, it's really important to understand that. So this is just a bit of an overview of testosterone levels. So if anyone has done their T levels from blood work, this is just a sliding scale. Again, this is just for reference if you ever want to download the slides in the future. Most blood testings now kind of give you a range anyway. So again, we don't want too much. That can be caused, that can cause issues. But we also don't want too little. So we want this kind of sweet spot. Okay, so here is a sample test. Actually, this is my own blood work. So there's two types of testosterone that you might get reported on. Okay, you get total testosterone and you get free testosterone. So the free testosterone is the one that we kind of want to focus on in terms of kind of making sure that it's at an adequate level. Okay, if you do not get free testosterone tested, total testosterone can be a bit of a marker that maybe doesn't show us that much information. So it can be a lot of testosterone in the body, but if we have high levels of something called SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, okay, I know there's a lot of words, big words I'm talking about here. I'm going to explain them all throughout this, but this basically binds to the total testosterone in the body, okay, and moves it around the body. Now, if we've got too much SHBG, then it's binding to all the testosterone and not allowing it to do its job. So we want adequate levels of total testosterone, but we also want to make sure that there's enough free testosterone to basically kind of go and do all of the good stuff that testosterone allows us to do. So you can see here, this is my blood work from last year. They've actually got this done before I went plant-based for 6 weeks. So you can see my free testosterone is quite low. And there's probably reasons why that you'll come to see when we talk about what lowers it. So I had to put in some interventions. My total testosterone was okay. I mean, still, again, on the pretty low, not on where we want it, kind of like, optimal. It was on the low side, okay? But I had looked quite fairly high SHBG. So I needed to put that intervention in terms of, I probably didn't need to be thinking about boosting testosterone. I probably needed to be thinking about lowering SHBG. Okay. So this is, some of the blood work that you get, and then they just do this little free androgen index. So a nice little ratio, and you can see here I'm quite low. So I had to put in some interventions, which I'll talk about later on. So as males, I think we just, accept things, and this is where, testosterone and things can be an indication of, maybe us not being in a state where we are optimizing our health and performance. We maybe accept being achy and sore. We might accept being stiff. But do we even aware that are we having an erection in the morning on a regular basis? Do we feel bloated after meals? Have we got excess belly fat? We just kind of accept that these kind of things happen. Now, this is a really important graph. So there's only 10% estimated percentage of men with symptoms of low testosterone, okay? So there's only 10% of people with symptoms, but there's a 40% estimate of actually clinically low levels. So there's a lot of people walking around that don't have symptoms that do have, low testosterone levels. So it's really, really important to be aware of the signs and look at these in a little bit more detail. So signs and symptoms of low testosterone, okay? These are something that we can go through and maybe kind of, this is a bit of a checklist that we can do afterwards to see if, that we might be at risk. The big one is a kind of low sex drive, kind of coupled with, no morning erection, okay? Like this is a really easy metric to do. So you really need to kind of focus, and it doesn't need to be every single morning. But if it's not happening, if you can't remember the last time or you never do it, then this is definitely something to be aware of, guys. Unexplained loss of hair, we have hot flushes, low in bone density. Again, you don't really know about those, but these are the types of things that we want to be looking at here. Maybe you find it very hard to put on muscle mass, or when you feel like a little bit soft, you're not really kind of feeling like, strong, and maybe you kind of, for some reason, you just feel like you're kind of putting on a little bit of body fat. That's inflammation again. So if you get your blood work done, HbA1c is just a marker of blood glucose levels across the last 3 months, because low testosterone can cause insulin resistance. Again, like talking about bone density here, problems sleeping. This is definitely something that we find with people with low testosterone levels. And this is the big one for me. I talk about this a lot about, are you thriving or surviving? Are you just getting through your sessions, or actually are you, kind of really just, you're at it, you're hammering it, and you're feeling really good. This kind of general fatigue is definitely something to be aware of. Maybe walking upstairs and you kind of, you get out of breath by just doing very, very simple tasks. This is what you want to be thinking about, identifying. And difficulty concentrating, like on tasks, like simple tasks, or, like you can't kind of focus on one thing. You're always kind of here, there, and everywhere, or you have that lack of motivation for training. And again, that kind of comes back into thriving or surviving. And you really need to be kind of looking at these types of things. So look, this is just a nice visual of, a man with like kind of low testosterone, like constant fatigue. I think that's the big one I want to kind of focus on, is like, really kind of just identifying like, Graham, really identifying like, is it something that you struggle with low morning energy? Do you really kind of like feel like you have to, always use a stimulant the first thing in the morning, get yourself out of bed? Do you feel that you have to warm up into sessions a lot? You're not kind of like ready to go. It takes you a long time, or you takes a long time to recover after your training sessions. Decreased muscle mass and, increased indomitable fat, again, is definitely something that we see with people at low T levels. And obviously we're not absolutely jacked, but you know, this is definitely something we want to be like. And when I talk with clients, and especially men, about what we want that athletic look. We don't need to be absolutely shredded, you know, bodybuilder style, but you want to feel powerful, you want to feel good, and this comes with, you know, adequate testosterone levels. So what lowers your testosterone levels? Again, this is a really nice kind of checklist to kind of go through and see if, you know, definitely something that we can put in some interventions. Not eating enough, a big one for me. We can go on and on about testosterone boosters and all of these different pills and powders that people spend serious amounts of money on. But one of the biggest things in terms of boosting testosterone levels is adequate caloric intake. You know, and this needs to be matched to your output. So, you know, not eating enough. Now we're going to go into protein, carbs, and fats in a bit, but not eating enough generally. Okay, this is a really, really, you know, important thing. We're talking about cholesterol. That's the kind of key thing in terms of producing, you know, hormones. So, you know, if you're not eating enough, you're not providing your body with the raw materials to build. Okay, so this is a really important thing. Increase in body fat or too high levels of body fat. Again, people will look for this quick fix and maybe taking a supplement or doing whatever. And I'm just like, no, if you lowered your body fat, we're going to talk about the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. You know, this aromatization, like that's what happens when you have an increase in body fat. Okay. And look, I've kind of hit you with the big three to start you off. Sleep is the biggest testosterone booster out there, period. Like, you will not find a bigger testosterone booster apart from sleep. Now, I know it's very easy for me to stand here and say, like, I just sleep more. You know, it's challenging, but we can, you know, there's lots of different things that we can do. And if you are not sleeping, you know, good quality with enough, you know, amount across the week, then all of these other little bits and pieces are just, you're going to make it so much harder for yourself. So we really need to focus on getting adequate sleep. So you see, I put excessive alcohol because, you know, we all like a drink. We're not saying that we're going to be teetotal, but it's the excessiveness. Okay, it's the amount. Overtraining / under recovering. We're going to talk about that in a minute, which leads into stress levels. And unfortunately, as we age, as we saw that graph at the start, as we age, we do naturally decline. So this is something that we can be proactive with. I'm really happy that there's a lot of, you know, kind of younger guys on this call. So, you know, this is definitely something to be aware of, you know, in our 30s, you know, even in your kind of late 20s, to be thinking like, right, I need to be proactive with this. And there's lots of stuff we can do. Kind of links back into the first point here, lack of nutrients. Okay. If you're not eating enough, there's less opportunities to nourish your body. But all of these different kind of phytochemicals, polyphenols, you know, vitamins and minerals, they're all super important. You know, cholesterol, there's lots of different, you know, factors that play a role in terms of producing, you know, steroid hormones. And we need all of these little cofactors, these B vitamins, zinc, magnesiums, you know, and these are the key things to focus on. So as we age, we have something called sarcopenia, okay? It's kind of loss of muscle mass. And we have something called anabolic resistance. So protein intake is crucial. So we're not talking about eating enough protein. And for those of you who have kind of been on calls with me before, I do talk about protein quite a lot. And it's so important. As we age, we need more to do the same amount of work that we did when we were younger. So for someone that's 25, if they take 25 grams of protein, you know, when you're maybe 40, 50 years old, you might need 40 grams to do the same amount, okay? Because the body becomes anabolic resistant, okay? And you need a little bit more protein at each meal. So the simple thing is a slightly larger portion is a really easy way to kind of, you know, offset that. It's such an amazing thing when I get older people to eat more protein, how they feel in terms of energy levels, in terms of recovery, in terms of, you know, managing stress, and all of these types of things is so important, guys. Like really is. And I'm not talking about shoveling down 80 grams in a serving, but just bumping it up, you know. And especially if you start to get over 45 and 50, you know, you really need to be thinking about maybe it's even kind of 40, 50 grams at each serving. Okay. As we age, gastric transit and our digestive enzymes slow down as well. So we really need to be thinking about, spacing our meals out, having a really nice consistent structure, rather than just trying to get 100 grams of protein in a, evening meal. Okay, so really, really important thing, guys, and that goes for everybody. So we talked about aromatization here. So when you have excess body fat, so basically when testosterone is produced, again, it can be converted into estrogen. Okay, and this is where you see that kind of skinny fat look. We don't want that. So this is the kind of process that happens. And I kind of realize there's a lot of graphs and chemical reactions going on here, but if this is just to show you the first one, when I said about pregnenolone still or cortisol still. So you can see that pathway goes into too much cortisol. But this pathway, so we go down into here, testosterone. But again, if it's converted, into estrogen, okay, it can remain free. That's what we want. Or it can be converted to estrogen. So if we've got too much body fat, okay, if we are consuming, too much food, too much of the wrong food, processed foods, all of these different things, and increasing our belly fat, then it's not the right way. We're not creating the right environment. Okay. So we talked about that pathway of aromatization, but now we're talking about the one about cortisol. So we know I said about there's a balance with all hormones. There is a balance with training and cortisol. Now, if testosterone, if you don't do enough training, if you don't do something, then, not enough exercise, too much eating, excess body fat, excess estrogen, that equals lowest testosterone. I know I missed the E off there. Lower testosterone. So it's really important that we should do training, specifically strength training. Now, strength training has been shown to boost testosterone because, the actual act of it, but also if we increase our muscle mass. Really, really, really important to kind of be doing that. However, if we do too much training, what happens? Training is a stress. It causes us to increase cortisol levels, and that will lower testosterone as well. So that balance, that seesaw, we want, the right amount. And this is why it's crucial. If you're following, a program, at the gym or whatever, you're following the Zoom classes, make sure that you listen to the coaches. We've got some coaches on here. So make sure you listen to the coaches. And there's a reason why they plan things out. There's a reason why there's rest day. There's a reason why there's periodization. So don't think on your rest days, oh, I won't do what the program says. I'll just go and do a 10K run and do some, Instagram WODs and, and do whatever. And then you're not allowing your body to recover. You're doing too much. Too much, again, will cause testosterone to be lowered, because again, that balance, there's an inverse relationship here. So we have too much cortisol, boom, it drives down testosterone. And maybe you've heard of testosterone and cortisol ratio. What I'm hoping to do with this talk is to make you understand why that occurs. So we're going to bring that back here. Again, this pathway. So now you understand there's a pathway here of why too much cortisol causes lower testosterone. If you say that, now you understand that this is why, because it steals it from the pathway. So it's really, really important that we make sure that we manage our training levels. We do enough, but we don't do too much, because we don't want to be kind of, stealing this pregnenolone and turning it into too much cortisol. Excessive cortisol, too much stress, increased belly fat, decreased muscle mass, because we don't allow it to get to testosterone. So guys, I kind of hope that makes sense in terms of, kind of that pathway. So here, look, we just get that pregnenolone still, and then we get aromatization. So these are the two things that can help to lower testosterone. The other things is like phytoestrogens, alcohol, like I said, high blood sugar, low fat intake, and then these other things like BPA. So you see all these bottles that are BPA free. This is BPA, and all of these things in kind of like, plastics and stuff can, interfere with testosterone because they increase aromatization. So get your chili bottles or your shaker or whatever, and make sure that you're make sure you're eating enough, managing your alcohol levels. Look, don't worry about the phytoestrogens. The reason why it's extremely large intake. I'm not going to go into soy today. We've actually got a video on this on the hub, but don't worry about soy. It's been massively blown out of proportion. You have to eat an incredible amount, and no one really wants to do that. No one will do that. So you're cool. So now we've talked about what lowers T levels. Now we're going to talk about what raises it. Okay. Now you will have seen probably something similar to this on the internet or people's Instagram talking about, you know, testosterone boosters and this one pot of pills that apparently if you take it, is going to, you know, jack your testosterone up through the roof. I'm not talking about steroids today. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. We will do a whole another talk on that. But as I said, the best testosterone boosters are sleep. But what raises T levels are losing body fat and sleep. Like genuinely, this is one of the biggest things that you can do, you know, very, very easily to be able to increase your testosterone levels. So I put here eating more veg and dark color foods because I talked about this micronutrient density, this, you know, the quality of your food makes a big, big difference.
I'm doing all right for 53.
Sorry, buddy. Oh,
sorry, I didn't
no.
realize the mic was on. Sorry.
No, sorry, mate. Something that you might kind of you know be surprised to see is like eating more calories, you know, can raise testosterone. Now, obviously, there's a balance between losing body fat and eating more calories. So we just got to be eating the more of the right things at the right times to make sure that we have that balance. Like I said, it's all about that kind of balance. Better spaced protein. I commonly see, guys, that there's a massive intake in the evenings. I don't think anyone really struggles to get protein in the evening meals. What I'm seeing is that, you know, lunchtimes especially and breakfasts are quite low in protein. So what we want to try to do is to allow our body to digest that a little bit more effectively. You know, this is a really kind of key thing to do for overall kind of like recovery and health anyway, but better spaced protein is a massive, massive thing, especially as we age. Okay. Really, really, really important to kind of be focusing on doing that. Lower stress. So the body it can't differentiate between types of stress, just no stress. So kids, wife, family, you know, lockdown, training, all of these things, you know, add to our stress cup. So what we want to think about doing is lowering stress. I'm talking a lot to people about managing their training load during lockdown because, you know, you end up thinking, oh, I can just do a little bit more, you know, because I'm here. Or some people are like, I can't be bothered. I'm not motivated. So we go back to that table where there's not enough and there's too much. And it's very hard. So, you know, it's really about kind of getting a nice kind of consistent structure in, maybe 2-3 days in a row, one rest day, 2-3 days in a row, you know, and kind of follow that kind of pattern where you're training maybe 5 days a week. You know, that's adequate amount of training, making sure that you are doing some form of strength training and not just burpees. You know, that's really, really important. If you're more endurance focused, then doing some strength training or resistance training is going to really help you to keep your testosterone levels up. Okay, you can't just keep hammering, you know, the cardio and the long distance. Okay, that's going to, you know, be again that too much training and not of the right amount, right type. Sorry. So it's about that balance. Specific nutrients. Okay, so, you know, look, this is getting into what raises, you know, so we're talking about like these like lifestyle factors, training factors. The biggest testosterone booster, in my opinion, from a nutrition point of view, is vitamin D. There's 40% estimated percentage of males who have insufficient vitamin D, and I think that's probably higher now we're in lockdown, you know, over the last year, because we're not getting out as much. Maybe we get out for an hour a day or even a little bit, you know, daily walk. But actually, I think that could be a little bit higher now. And everyone on here, if you aren't taking vitamin D, if you have never tested your vitamin D levels, you know, I think it's a really simple thing to do. We've got at-home tests, there's finger prick tests. If you search it, it's so cheap. But anyway, if you don't want to test, I would just say take it. It's very hard to, it's almost impossible to become, you know, toxic vitamin D. and it's a really cheap, easy supplement. But the number one thing in terms of boosting testosterone, what it also does is it helps to lower SHBG, that sex hormone binding globulin. Okay, so we get a kind of double whammy. You know, it's definitely something that can kind of, we're looking for the most bang for your buck. So when I got my results back, I wasn't supplementing with vitamin D. So that was the number one thing I did straight away, and it helped to normalize my levels quite quickly. So again, really, really important, guys, to kind of take home. Like, don't waste your money on all of these £45 a month testosterone boosters with all these, weird roots and extracts and all of these things. Like, there's some tiny efficacy in a few of them, but do the things that are going to make the biggest bang for your buck. And get vitamin D in. You're looking at around probably 3,000 to 5,000 IUs a day. If you get that in, I guarantee that you're going to kind of feel a lot better. So key nutrients, omega-3s, okay? Again, a little bit of research on lowering inflammation, helping the body to become more, like anabolic, because we're not having too much cortisol. So we're looking at a holistic approach here and making sure that we can support our body by boosting our testosterone. Omega-3 supplement, really, really great. I think it's a really easy thing to do. As much as people say to me, I eat oily fish, it's very challenging to get enough from your diet. So I would 100% again advise people that are training regularly, and people that are on this call, I know that you're training hard and I know that you want to keep progressing. An omega-3 supplement is a really easy way to get something that's going to help not just testosterone levels, but it's also going to help kind of overall lower inflammation, health markers. So I would definitely get one in. Even if you're eating oily fish a few times a week, again, we need enough. The amount of blood work that I've done on people, I've never, well, I say never, I think I've had like 2 people that have been in the correct omega-3 to 6 ratio. It's so hard. I think they're a little bit aggressive with it, like in terms of like 3 to 1, I think it is, but it's really hard to get enough from your diet. So I would definitely, for those that are training regularly, I would definitely get an omega-3. Magnesium, this is something I supplement with like a zinc and magnesium, because zinc is a really powerful thing for enzyme production and helping to support that process of testosterone production. But you can get magnesium from from foods, same as zinc. You can get adequate, it's quite a lot in fortified breakfast cereals, seeds, nuts, meats, fish, seafood, eggs, all of these things that we eat relatively frequently. These also have these trace nutrients in. So I would definitely say that you don't necessarily need a zinc and magnesium, but I would think that you can get it, making sure that you're kind of ticking these kind of foods off. Magnesium is also in beans, and like you said, put there. And so from a vegan or vegetarian plant-based diet, you can use all of these things here: seeds, nuts, beans. And again, it goes back to that kind of nutrient density with the dark colored, fruits and veggies. This is a big one, team. Selenium. Really important nutrient for immune function. It's an antioxidant, again, helping that body to become, basically just creating the right environment. Now, selenium, we can get every bit of selenium that we ever need from about 3 Brazil nuts a day. They're an amazing source. I think it's like 1,000 times higher than the next source form. So again, if you're going to snack on nuts, or if you're going to include them in your diet, like stock up on a few Brazil nuts is a really easy thing to do. Okay, you only need like 2 or 3 a day to get adequate selenium. You don't want to be smashing down 40 grams of thing. You're going to get a lot, too much selenium, and it's not too much of an issue. Your body processes it okay, but a few Brazil nuts, honestly, a massive, massive difference in terms of helping you to
Liam, can I just ask you something on this point?
Of course you can.
Sorry, yeah, I've heard about this with selenium before. I'm massively allergic to Brazil nuts. So what is an alternative source of selenium?
I'm going to have to pull it up, mate, because there really isn't enough. So what I would say for you is, if I look on the thing, the next kind of like one down is so little. It's like fish and meat and eggs and stuff like that. So it's in these foods. but it's in such small amounts that I would
So a
probably
selenium
say,
supplement then, rather than
yeah, definitely, mate. If you're really allergic, then yeah, what I would do is just supplement like maybe like a couple of times a year, like for like a 30-day block, rather than be something that you take year round. So you might want to supplement it around kind of September, October, kind of leading into, normally when like we need to support our immune system, and then maybe kind of coming out around kind of February, March now, as well, because it helps with immune function as well as things. So I would say block it around those 2 times and maybe just take it. It's quite cheap. You can get just a single selenium supplement, mate. You'll be more than adequate. Yeah. So get that in.
Great. Thanks. Sorry about that, guys. Thanks.
No. Crack on. Again, vitamin D, spoke about that. So we're all good with here. So guys, I'm gonna just gonna give you some take homes before I kind of open it up, and we can always kind of go back and recap on certain bits or dive into to people's specifics. So get your levels tested. I'm going to link to and send everybody links to some at-home testing, and there's different levels as well. It doesn't need to be the full package, which is like probably, I think, about £180 or something. You can get testosterone or that, that kind of T profile that I showed you for about 25, 30 quid, I think. But it's nice to get an overall picture at the start, and then you can pick off the individuals. If you've never, ever done it, I would highly advise just to have a look at where you are. And like I said about, you can see, are my free levels low? Are my free levels high? Total testosterone, and look at that SHBG and just see like, where do I need to put, my focus. Get the right level of training. Okay, this is super, super important. Even if you have minimal equipment at the moment, talk to your coach. Like I think, the guys at Phobos and other places here, Danny, is talking about, time under tension, using external load and body weight positions. You can still become and do strength training. Calisthenic, it's all body weight. And look at those guys. They're in great condition. So it's just about being, getting the right level. If you're doing WODs and Zooms and everything like this, that's totally cool. But just to make sure because we're talking about testosterone levels, you've got to be doing some resistance training, not just jump lunges and burpees. You got to put a bit of tension through the body. Okay, create that environment to grow, create that environment to, get a bit stronger, put on a bit of muscle mass. This is something that I see a lot with people that struggle with like putting on muscle mass or want to get stronger or more powerful, but they just will do way too many of the wrong types of exercising, okay, or the wrong type of training. I'm not saying that you should be, sacking everything off and just doing some bro sessions. But, every now and then it's good. You can tag it on. You can do a couple of supersets at the end of your class, before your class. But it's really important, okay? No one got stronger, more muscular, by walking on a treadmill and doing burpees. So you need to do the right level of training. The right level as well in terms of across the week. Okay, that's super important in terms of allowing your body that time to recover. Now I know it's kind of, the CrossFit is a great thing, but it's also put a bit of pressure on us all to be thinking that we need to be training 2-3 hours a day, 6 times a week, and all of these things. You don't. You need to push hard and then allow that body to recover, because as we know, that pathway of taking too much cortisol and steal everything to be able to boost that testosterone. So, we need to do the right level of training, but just make sure that you've got enough time to allow your body to recover and bring that cortisol levels down. So talking about bringing that stress levels down and allowing your body to repair and recover, sleep is such an important thing, team. Like, honestly, it's incredible, the research that you read about testosterone levels and sleep. You really need to be making sure that you nail that. Calories and protein. So making sure that you focus on these two. We talk about carbs and fats, and maybe people think about, testosterone because it's a cholesterol that starts the cascade of producing it. I need more fat. Although you don't need, a super low fat diet, carbohydrates help you to train harder. They help you to recover better. They help you to provide the energy for training rather than kind of deriving it from protein and other sources. So you need carbohydrates to train effectively, and that will help you to boost testosterone levels rather than causing excess stress to the body. So making sure that you got a balance in terms of this hierarchy, get your calories correct, get your protein done, and then carbs and fats can kind of be, nicely balanced depending on what you're doing and personal preference, but making sure that you get that. Then you got the nutrient density of your diet. And then we can talk about supplementation, because that's the key. You've got to get this hierarchy in for importance. It says, I'm a nutritionist, but for getting stronger and putting on muscle and boosting your testosterone, training comes first. You need to do training, the right type of training, and then you need all your nutrition involved, after that. Okay, so super, super important. So I've got a couple of things here. We use MediChecks and we use Thriver. Okay, Thriver, really easy at-home tests. MediChecks also have some as well. I will link and send everybody these, okay, as well. You can also get your vitamin D levels done. So just thinking about kind of that, but I'll send the link in a wrap-up email after team. Fantastic. So guys, I'm going to open it up for some questions. Now I realize that there's areas that we didn't cover in this, such as like fasting, such as like insulin and carbohydrate timing, and all of these other little bits and pieces. So I'm more than welcome to ask questions on these. The reason why I didn't cover them is because it's almost like a big topic that I want to kind of do on another call. And yeah, we'll want to kind of maybe get a little bit more specific. So team, I'm going to open it up. If anyone wants
Liam,
to.
Sorry, mate. Do you mind if I ask you something? Just two things quickly. I've got my dad with me as well. He's well done, mate. Brilliant, by the way.
Thank you.
Can you tell me why dark fruits?
Just because if you're looking for the most bang for your buck, they've got the most nutrient, like the highest concentration of like the polyphenols and like phytochemicals in, rather than like the kind of more white fruits, like the white veggies and the kind of more paler ones. So it's just the concentration of the antioxidants. That's why we're looking at dark greens, dark color like berries, and stuff like this. So yeah, it's just the concentration levels of it, mate.
And sorry, last thing. Who are we recommending at the moment for supplements? Where would you steer towards?
So I have an Amazon page that I've kind of collated some good ones together. In terms of actual brands, FoodSpring are fantastic. They have a really good
FoodSpring got supplements, right?
FoodSpring are really, really good. They've got really nice range that kind of hits that, like a good omega, good zinc and magnesium. They've got a good creatine, using like a Creapure. So that's there. Or I've collated some on like an Amazon page. But for me, if you go and doing that, like getting some, I would definitely say that they're a really kind of reputable brand. I love bulk powders and my protein and stuff. You just got to be very wary about which ones you purchase on there.
So things like the omega-3s and stuff like that, I think that FoodSpring have got that, have they?
Yeah.
And the vitamin D's, yeah? Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And what was the BBP?
And what was that? Sorry, what was that thing on the bottled water you were saying about?
BPA.
BPA.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's like biphosphonate acid or something like that. I can't remember what it is. So basically, it kind of leaks into your water or liquids, and like I said, it just basically enhances the aromatase enzyme, so it turns like testosterone into more estrogen. So you'll see all like kids stuff, baby stuff. It's a toxin basically. So you'll see BPA free on all baby stuff. But then when we become adults, single use plastics and don't really care about it. So
is there one you recommend to use?
No, like bottles.
Just anything that's got BPA free on it.
Anything that's BPA free. It's a really simple thing to do, guys. And like, as much as I talk about the big things, like these small little tips are really simple, and it's a really easy thing to do with a lot of stuff. So you can look at like BPA free cooking ware, Tupperware. You'll see it. Now I kind of mentioned it. You'll probably see that most of the stuff that you're buying is that now. Yeah, just to make sure that you're aware of that, buddy. We've got a question here. Go on, Dan.
I was just about the vitamin D. I've been told before that if you're going to supplement it, tablet form doesn't work so well. It should be the liquid that you take. Is that right, or is that a load of nonsense? Or?
So it's kind of right. The biggest thing with vitamin D supplement is because it's a fat soluble vitamin, you need to take it with a fat source or a fat meal. So the liquid, they might have bound it with like vitamin E or like a like a fat source to help the absorption. The tablet might not have that, so that's why probably they're saying the absorption rate's a little bit higher. So I use a spray, and I just make sure I take it around the mealtime when I've got a some form of fat in it, mate. Really, really easy to do that. Like it's a nicer thing to do, just a few sprays, and then you're done. And the absorption rate for that side of things has been shown to be cool.
Okay, and are you linking that specific one onto your resources?
It's just on the reason why I collated it on Amazon is because a lot of people got Amazon Prime and there's lots of different brands that I recommend, so you just kind of collated them all together. So I'll send the link literally straight after this. I'll send it to everybody, and there's a really good omega on there, like Nordic Naturals, that's not that expensive, but again the purity of it is really good. One of the questions we just got in the chat there was, is a supermarket omega-3 as effective as a leading brand? No, it's not. There's a website called Labdoor or Consumer Labs as well, and they rate and rank like all supplements, in terms of like quality, where it comes from, efficacy. Now, a lot of supermarket omega-3s are derived from like kind of mass produced farms. Now, if you're thinking about you need something that's anti-inflammatory, then these things aren't going to be the best quality source. So unfortunately, sometimes it can actually do the opposite effect. If it's rancid, if it smells of fish, if your omega-3 smells of fish, get rid of it. It shouldn't smell at all. It should be like a neutral smell. And then it's basically oxidized and become rancid. So when you're putting this into your body, you're creating inflammation instead of lowering it. If you ever walk past Holland and Barrett and see all of the fish oils in the window, like BPA in the probably in the plastic things, because it's a clear tub, so the sunlight's in there, so that's it's oxidizing it, sitting in the window, of really poor quality. So you've got to be very wary of these. So that's why I've linked on Amazon. Like there's a couple of brands that I really like. If you ever see something in a clear omega in a clear pot as well, I would steer clear of it, just because you want to keep it out of sunlight. So that would be my advice there, Tom, for anybody there. So yeah, don't think it's better. Buy cheap, buy twice. So you need to spend a little bit of money on, like, the vitamin D is really cheap. Okay, don't spend a lot of money on vitamin D. It's like creatine. Creatine should be cheap. Don't be going and spending £20 on vitamin D. On creatine. Really cheap stuff. That's you can kind of save your money there, and then I would spend a little bit more money on an omega. I wouldn't scrimp on that. Just before I go on, I've got another question here. Is it possible to overshoot on protein at each meal? This is going to be one of the things I'm actually going to talk about in future. I'm going to talk all about protein. But yes, it is. There is a kind of like a maximal amount that the body can process, and then it's just it's just oxidized and excreted. But protein does a lot more than just build muscle, remember. So it's involved in detoxification, digestion, neurotransmitter production. So there's a lot of kind of interaction with that. Now, with protein amounts in each meal, you want to be thinking about making sure that you've got 20 to 25 grams, because that's going to be able to hit that leucine threshold, this key amino acid to maximize protein synthesis. Plus, you're going to have all the other amino acids with it. Above that, there's still benefit, but it depends on what you've done, if you trained, what's your age, what's your muscle mass. So there's a lot of kind of interaction there. So I'm suggesting for most people that you need to be hitting 30, 35 grams, because we know that protein is required for a lot of other things. So that's the 25 grams that you might hear. You don't need any more of that in the research. That's just where protein synthesis maximizes. That's where it tops out. But your body still needs other protein, you know, to do that, and it's still going to be slower digesting depending on what you've eaten it with. So there is a bit of a minimum target, and then there's no real benefit of going up for me above, you know, that kind of maybe, you know, 30, 35 gram, 45, 50 gram, but it depends on your size. So if, you know, you're saying like me, who I'm 70 kilos, whereas you got a geezer's 100 kilos and it, you know, got a lot more muscle mass. If we eat 30 grams of protein, it's going to be, you know, utilized a lot more efficiently in my body because I don't need as much. Whereas he's got 30 kilos more that he needs to fuel. So the research again is a little bit, you need to kind of take it with a pinch of salt. So Tom, I hope that kind of, you know, I hope that kind of clears it up a little bit. I will be doing a talk on protein specifically, but just to leave it on that, there's no detriment. There's research on like 4 grams per kilo per body weight a day. So you feel like, you know, that you work that out, a lot of protein, and people didn't put on weight. It's mental. So the body just processes it and just excretes it. It doesn't seem to be this, you know, this issue of overeating protein in terms of like a negative effect. So there's no real negative effect of eating way too much. It's very challenging to do. So again, you probably won't need to worry about that. But making sure that you're eating enough is key. One question here: anything we can do to improve sleep? My sleep is terrible. It takes me ages to get off. Wake in the night. Yeah, kids is tough, man. Like teas and tablets and all sorts. Yeah, good. There's a couple of people about sleep. So we've got a sleep habit on the hub. Okay. So if you are on the hub, then definitely jump onto that and follow. It's a 2-week habit, and it breaks down some simple things to do. Now, just to hit you with a really, really key things: dark room. Number 1 tip, works with almost everybody that I have worked with. If you can't get blackout curtains, wear an eye mask. Like genuinely, you will be amazed at how much this makes a difference. Like unbelievable difference. I would then think about a cool room. So I've got a little temperature gauge and my thing, they're like a couple of quid off Amazon, and making sure that your temperature of your room actually feels probably colder than it is at the moment. So you're looking around 17, 18 degrees, 19 degrees. Warmth can help you wake up in the middle of the night. That's something that, you know, is really, if you wake in the middle of the night, make sure that the temperature of the room is a little bit lower than what it is now. And don't overhydrate in the evening. Okay. Get up, get hydrated, and stay hydrated in the morning. Don't just be gulping loads of water in the evening. Okay. That's going to help, you know, if you get up for a wee, even if you get back into bed, you're breaking your sleep pattern. So try to not overhydrate in the evening. It's really, really important. Now teas and foods and everything like that, it's yeah, there's lots of other things, but maybe I'll just link to a couple of kind of, you know, take home points. But honestly, if you start with those 2, temperature and light, you make a big difference. But I'll send everyone actually some good on sleep because there's a few people asking about that. So, but if you are on the hub, please go onto the sleep habit and follow that. There's tons of information about, you know, each day you get a lesson, but there's like a kind of checklist that you can use. So really, really, you know, go and sign up, it gets delivered via our app. So check that out. I knew someone, Luke, I knew you were going to ask about fasting. I knew. Good. I've actually just released our fasting nutrition plan on the hub, where I go into testosterone levels a little bit more. So look, fasting is, again, another thing we'll do a topic on, but in terms of testosterone levels, I think fasting is great. I just think it needs to be done in the correct way. Testosterone levels can be boosted on a fasting plan if you eat enough in your feeding window. The issue that I see is that people go, oh, if I fast, my growth hormone goes up, because that's what everyone tells you that fasting does. And although that's true, it's basically like, you know, turning on the light switch, but there's no light bulb in. So you're like, well, I've got all this growth hormone, but I can't do anything with it because you're not eating enough. So, you know, you need the raw material still. So you can boost, you know, testosterone and, you know, do this with fasting. I think it's a fantastic thing. You just need to make sure that you're, again, in your feeding window, you know, eating enough protein, eating enough carbohydrates, eating enough calories to support your training. Now, if you're going into training again underfed, what happens? Too much cortisol, and again, you can see how this kind of pattern starts to occur. So it doesn't matter the method of what you do. You just need to make sure that you're aligning it to your, setup. So fasting is fantastic. For you, I would say, so if you stop eating at, 5 or 6, 14 hours. So 14 hours, 15 hours is a good time to fast. That's a really, really good time. It's not excessive. So buddy, I think you're nailing it there. I think it's really, really good. And eating in the morning as well is a nice thing, especially like around, because it helps you to kind of support training or recover from morning training. So mate, I would say you're on the right track there. So you have nothing to worry about. Several times hormone testing, I always get normal testosterone levels, but the luteinizing hormone is really, really low.
Yeah, that's me. Hi, Liam. How are you?
Hey, bud.
Good. Which is weird because usually they say LH is basically in coordination with the estradiol and the testo. So whenever they are up, it should be up as well.
Yeah. So you got normal testosterone and normal estrogen.
And 0.01 LH.
LH. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to do a little bit of, without kind of knowing a bit more about your profile, and seeing it. So let's chat a little bit more, and we can send me your data, and I'll have a little look at it. Did you get anything else tested?
No, actually, that's it. Only that.
Okay.
I'm gonna double check, but I think it's only that.
Yeah. This again, guys, for everybody on this, like again, that blood testing, that standalone blood testing is good information, but it can also be dangerous because you don't know the full picture. So if you Googled what boosts luteinizing hormone, you're going to get kind of things that stand alone. So you need to maybe look at, like, I think a couple of these areas, such as like vitamin D, such as these other things, and we know that hormone production in general comes from that cholesterol, comes from calories, comes from a stress-free environment. So you're going to kind of work back and look at that more functional approach. But we'll talk a little bit more, mate, and we can delve into it, and we'll maybe do a little kind of case study and let people know about that.
Thank you.
Good stuff, Simon. Yes, mentioned lower body fat is increasing testosterone, but not eating enough is lowering the test levels. Yeah. So just before going to the rest of that, there's a balance, isn't it? Like, lower too low body fat, lowest testosterone. Too high body fat, lowest testosterone. So again, it's finding that balance. So Simon's currently following the fat loss template, and when my body fat is too high, not eating enough, and when it is not enough, going to be a problem. Okay, so yeah, I mean, creating the right calorie deficit, I think that's what we need to focus on here. So we need to if you're going to try and lose body fat, you need to create a deficit that's not way too aggressive for too long. That's the key. So you can be aggressive with your deficit to kind of make that change, but you want to be maybe doing that for like a week, 10 days, 2 weeks maximum, and then bringing your levels back up to maintenance. So it's almost like a mini cut. This works really well if you've kind of lost a little bit of weight and maybe plateaued. You might want to do a little bit of an aggressive, but you have to come back up. More is not always better. You can't continually lose weight, and that's where people go wrong. And then all of a sudden you create this environment where you've got low testosterone, low overall intake, and you get into this, this horrible kind of cycle. So you've got to be thinking about taking a small deficit for a longer period of time, which allows you to eat a little bit more calories, protein, nutrient-dense foods, but then drop that kind of, and still support your training and drop that body fat. Or I would go short periods where you go a little bit more aggressive. So if you're on the template, you can choose aggressive, and that puts you about 450, 500 calorie deficit, which is quite a lot. But do it for a short period of time, get that kind of change, and then you can kind of bring yourself back up to a maintenance level. And what you'll find is that you would then kind of lose a little bit of body fat quite quickly, but still not kind of affect your testosterone level. So that's what I would suggest for people that are starting a plan or have been following it for a little bit of period of time, and you won't get the negative effects of extended dieting then. So Simon actually mentioned here about problem sleeping. He got some blue light glasses, the blue blockers. Surprised at how good it works. So yeah, like there is something that I think is fantastic to do in terms of, you know, getting those things in, like blue light, you know, light blockers. You can actually use something on your laptop. If you've got Macs, you can put it, or phones, you can put it on what it is, night modes and stuff like that. There's an app called Flux for your laptop. If you do have to work late, it kind of changes it to like a, you know, like takes all the blue light out of it. It's a lot better than the Mac version on it. So it's a free thing called Flux. So definitely think about doing that if you have to work in the evenings. And then yeah, just be thinking about kind of, you know, doing those basic things of, you know, creating that right sleep environment. So sleep, guys, I know is really important. The thing is as well to leave you with is, if you're thinking about, you know, you need to go to bed at, you know, 10:30, you've got to think about going to bed at like 9:30. Don't think about going to bed at 10:20. You've got to build into it. It's like warming up into a workout. You know, you don't hit your, you know, your 90% of your snatch 2 minutes after kind of thinking about starting to train. You've got to warm up to it, and sleep's the same thing. You've got to create that environment. If anyone's got kids, what do? We build a routine. We build bath, we build we build calm environment, feed, book, sleep. But for us, we're like watching people get shot up on Netflix for 4 hours, and then we're like, boom, right, need to go sleep. We're not creating the right environment. So we've got to be thinking about, you know, if you're going to want to be in bed and asleep by 10:30, because you've got to get up at 6:30 or 6 o'clock, you know, you've got to be thinking about going to bed at kind of 9:15, 9:30, and create that environment. It's a really key thing. Fantastic. Guys, honestly, thank you so much for the first one that we've done on this series. Like I said, there's lots of different topics, and it's really nice because I think we'll definitely do one on protein, we'll definitely do one on fasting, we'll do one on sleep, you know, but we're linking it back to you know, men's health. So really kind of great, guys. Just before you go, we've just launched an online forum on the hub. So now there is a place for all of you to be able to interact, ask the coaches, get in front of us, ask some questions, you know, rather than kind of Facebook groups or emails or, you know, all of these different things. Going to host it all into one place. So look, it's just launched, so there's kind of not really that much content on it at the moment, but feel free to kind of get involved here. There's a men's health topic category on there, so I'll be posting a little bit more on there. So it's a good chance, if you've got any questions, pop them on there. You know, and you can kind of tag me in there, and I'll make sure to point you in the right direction. So all of these recordings will be hosted on there, and I'll be posting them out to the relevant people. Dan, I'll be posting it to you so you can forward it on, mate. And yeah, just thank you so much, team, for joining.
That was outstanding, mate. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to reiterate that Liam's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for this morning.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you so much. Guys, go enjoy your Sunday.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.